That's probably the scariest thing you've ever heard. Where's my fuck? I should have. Hi. Welcome to my video. So I just had a blackout, and I was trying to film this video when I was doing that because I had nothing else to do, but the internet went down and my mobile hotspot, I lost phone service. But anyway, so I am going to be filming a spooky video. Yeah, I'll be reading scary stories. Ooh. Let's see and pull up this not so spooky light. Good job. Whoa! Frickin' Satan. 12 terrifying ghost stories you shouldn't read alone on HuffPost. Or 67 true scary stories to tell. And I might make this a series, I'm thinking. Because there's a lot of these. And they all say they're the most terrifying, but no. How much you want to bet? Might turn my brightness down. It's already at the lowest, but anyway. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? What? The cell phone. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, brought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked into his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes, such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. The end. Ghost bro. Oh yeah, bro. Woo. I don't know. My house was built in 1904. It's a single family home, wood frame setting on a concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard in this house, this one event is my favourite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friends had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock. Alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early evening, and they would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter. They had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement, but the tricky part was all the way to the back of the basement, up the back stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall, into the living room, and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck, waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on the speaker in the basement. He had made the decision to go back. Now, the basement is not clean. With full sight lines, there had been partitions. Oh. He made the decision to go back. Now, the basement wasn't so clean. With full sight lines, there had been partitions made. The boiler and main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So my brother walks back. He's about to retrieve his food container when out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It's a shadowy figure, right in his peripheral vision. The feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over my brother. We had been taught that if you're in the presence of a spirit or ghost and you feel a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or to cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, "Hey, fuck you, I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing doors and turning off all lights as he was walking out. The last switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding into the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flickered the last switch, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. As he stepped out and pulled on the door, closing it behind him, still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and his friend-laden truck, he kind of smiled and thought things over in his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house. When one of his friends asks, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother answered, "What do you mean?" "He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then, who is walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" Satan! I have glitter on my face. Wow. The following. Dun, dun, dun. My older sister has a ghost that followed her around for years. I lived with her once for about 3 months, and so much weird stuff happened in that time. All my sister would say to me when I mentioned it was that her ghost didn't like me being there. Things like going to bed with everything locked up and switched off and waking up in the morning with the back door open, lights on and kettle switched on. One night, my sister and I were getting ready to go out and I asked to borrow her liquid foundation. I used it and put it back where she kept her makeup. 10 minutes later, she's asking me for it and it's nowhere to be seen. She accused me of taking it and made me buy her a new one and refused to listen to my side of the story. About a year or so later, when she was packing to move to a new house, she found the makeup in a shoebox with some old letters. The shoebox was in a zipped up suitcase and was underneath her bed. But probably the most scared I've ever felt was one afternoon when I was the only one in the house, which never happened as 4 other people lived there. I arrived home from work and headed straight to the bathroom. All the windows and doors, etc. were closed. I was standing in the bathroom and started squeezing a pimple on my chin when a female voice in the hall said, "Stop picking your zits." It was loud enough and sounded real. Real enough. And at the time I thought it was my sister, so I laughed and told her to fuck off and asked what she was doing for dinner. No answer. I stuck my head out into the hall. No one there. I searched the house top to bottom and there was no one home. I sat out on the front porch until someone else got home because I didn't want to be in there alone. And I don't blame you. The whispers. This is a story I do not often tell. I promise sincerely that this has scarred me for life. And although I have looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them, and then asking my mum. She figured they were just bumps in the night and typical kids' nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that they sounded different from one another, the way people voices do. On some nights, I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mum's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. I should add to this point that when walking out into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into my living room on the first floor, as my mum's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night, around Christmas, I awoke and felt the need to relieve myself. I walked out the door and distinctly heard the phrase, "Look," and to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Being a little kid, and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what that light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house to know I was being a good boy? I was so excited I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into darkness in my living room. That's when I heard him. A very strong, masculine voice. Different from the first. Not at all like my father's. Not to say he isn't masculine, it was just distinctly different. It said, "Stop, right now, go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around, and what happened next, I am not sure I would believe if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the chairs, After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we woke the next morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs. Some broken from what seemed to be a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen from the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been victims of a home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing. Nobody had broken in. There did not seem to be any reason for what had happened. And then I saw it. And I just kept quiet about it because I was so afraid that I could not force words out of my mouth. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink which had been facing up, were 3 indentations where the finished wood had been worn. Almost as if, in a forceful grip, something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That was what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night, if it was anything at all. But I can tell you that the reality was that something had physically acted upon 2 things in my house near the bottom of that stairwell. After this, I had never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank the man, masculine energy, that had stopped me from going down those stairs. This happened when I was 7. I'm 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I'm still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. The grandfather. My grandfather told me this story about how one time he was sitting in a chair in front of the house when he heard his wife repeatedly calling him from inside the house. The thing is, my grandma passed away a few years before that, but he told me that the voice was so pressing that he actually got up to look inside the house, and as soon as he got inside, he heard a loud crash behind him and turned around to see that the chair he had been sitting in moments ago had been crushed by the cast iron gutter that fell on it. If he hadn't come inside the house, he would have probably been seriously injured. I don't know if it's paranormal or not, but every time I think about it, it sends chills down my spine. There's something in my eye! I swear to God, if there is a ghost poking me in the eye right now, I will actually not be happy. Oh wow, I just realized that the unicorn kind of looks like a spooky. That's funny. I swear if I edit this and there's like, I don't know, fucking something there, Goodbye. The crib shadow. I was babysitting my niece once while I was staying at my brother's place, and they had a baby camera set up so I could see her on the little TV it came with. I was studying and started dozing off when I heard some whispering and realized it was coming from the monitor. I initially thought it was some feedback or something, but when I looked at the TV, a dark shadow near my niece's crib. I've never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there where it had not been before. I ran to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing, but I took her the hell out of there. I went back to the TV and the shadow was clearly gone. I told my brother what happened and he pulled me aside and told me not to mention it to my sister-in-law because she'll freak out. But that he had seen the same thing several times now with the same whispering. They stayed in that house for about 4 more years, and when my niece was just learning to talk, she would tell her mum about her special friend. To this day, it scares the shit out of me. When they moved out, my brother told me my niece had become inconsolably sad because she would miss her friend. Her mum would tell her she could bring him along, but all she would say is that he couldn't leave the house. We have never to this day told her about that damn shadow, and she apparently never saw it. The shadow. I was living in a house in Laguna Beach that had been there since the 1920s. In its history, it had been a speakeasy, a brothel, and a house for smuggling illegal immigrants. One day, my new wife and I were having an argument. I can't even recall what it was about. She walked down the block to get a cup of coffee and cool off, and I was alone in the house. The way the place was built was incredibly haphazard. I don't know what that word is. There was 1 bedroom and a living room on one side, then a bathroom with 2 entrances. One on the other side of the bathroom was a hallway that had windows on one side and 2 bedrooms on the other. From my bedroom, I could look across the hall into the bathroom. Then through the bathroom and down the other hall, I was standing at my dresser, and I just noticed movement out of the corner of my eye and looked down there. There was, and honest to God, this gives me goosebumps just typing it. 17 years later, a black figure. It was maybe 3 feet tall and only vaguely humanoid. It looked like a black scribbles, like someone had scribbled a human shape, but the scribbles moved. Like electricity arcing. That's the best way to describe it. There was no sound that I could remember. I distinctly remember that I saw it and I wasn't afraid, just like, what the fuck? Then it noticed me looking at it. I can't say it turned around, it just focused on me, I guess. Then I was scared. I didn't move, didn't scream, nothing. I was just frozen because it just fucking came at me. It rushed down the hall towards me. I have no idea what it intended, but as soon as it entered the bathroom, the door closest to me just slammed shut on it. I screamed. I yelled for my wife. She wasn't home. I went the fuck outside into the daylight and I didn't go back in until she was home about 10 minutes later. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe I saw something supernatural, but I know I saw something and I don't know what it is or was. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? It's a photo. I'll attach it. That's creepy. My friend took this picture of his cousin in their new house. He says it was just the 2 of them there, but that's not what it looks like. Dude! Ugh. Got chills now. Okay guys, so that concludes this spooky story reading. I almost just burnt my hair off, but anyway. And if you want me to make this a series, let me know down below. Like my video, share it, subscribe, do all that spooky stuff. It's not spooky, it's just do it, okay? Please, I'm begging you. Anyway, I'm going to go now. Goodbye.